How many different scent products are you carrying into the woods right now? And what if one $3 bottle from the pharmacy replaced all of them? I counted mine last season. I had a bottle of doe estrus for the scrape, a curiosity scent for the wick, a cover spray for my boots, and an attractant gel for the drag rag. 4 products, roughly $55 total, and I was rotating them based on which phase of the season I was in. You have lived this. Standing in the scent aisle at the shop, holding 3 or 4 bottles, doing the math in your head, trying to figure out which ones you actually need versus which ones the packaging convinced you to grab. The doe estrus is $14. The curiosity scent is $12. The boot spray is $8. The drag rag formula is $14. You walk out $50 lighter, and you have not even bought arrows yet. Then 3 weeks into the season you realize the curiosity scent dried up, the boot spray is half gone, and the drag rag formula smells like rubbing alcohol after 2 hours on the ground. A buddy who has been guiding archery hunts in SW, Virginia, that Blue Ridge foothill country west of Roanoke, where the hollows are tight with laurel and the ridges run with chestnut oak, watched me unload my scent bag one morning and said, "You look like a pharmacist." He pulled one small brown bottle out of his vest pocket and said, "This is all I have carried for 8 years. It was anise oil. Not the extract from the baking aisle, which is diluted in alcohol. The pure essential oil from the pharmacy or health food store. A 1-ounce bottle costs $300 to $5 depending on where you buy it. And that 1 ounce covers roughly 30 to 40 field applications because you use drop, not pours." He told me he uses it for everything. Before we get into the comparisons, I need to mention regulations. Anise oil is not a food product and it contains 0 nutritive value for deer. In my reading of the regulations in the states I hunt, it does not qualify as bait because it is a non-consumable aromatic compound with no caloric content. But baiting definitions vary by state and sometimes by county, and I am not a lawyer. Check your state wildlife agency regulations before you put any scent product in the woods. 5 minutes on the website protects your tag and your record. He told me he uses it for everything. Curiosity scent on a wick, mock scrape enhancer on the licking branch, cover scent on his boots, drag rag scent on the walk-in, 1 bottle, 4 jobs. I thought he was cutting corners because he was cheap. Turns out he was cutting corners because it works better than the stuff I was buying at the shop. If you have tried anise oil on your ground, I want to know what happened. Stay until the end because there is a specific drag rag method using anise oil mixed with one other ingredient that pulls bucks along your entry, trail and into your stand location, and it costs about $0.10 per application. I spent the next 2 seasons testing his claim the only way I know how. Side by side, same property, same corridor, same camera model, different scent. The test was simple. 2 cotton wicks, 20 yards apart on the same travel corridor, each in front of a Browning Recon Force Edge camera at $90. 1 wick got the commercial product for that category. The other got anise oil. I rotated positions every week, so terrain bias did not stack the numbers. I ran 4 separate comparisons across 2 seasons on my Ozark property and on a lease in the Shawnee country of southern Illinois. That sandstone bluff and bottomland hardwood edge along the Ohio River, where the timber is thick and the deer density is high. The first comparison was curiosity scent, a nice oil versus Tink Power Scrape at $12. Over 3 weeks in early October, the anise wick pulled 14 deer investigations. The Tinks pulled 9. I defined an investigation as a deer stopping within 5 yards and orienting its nose toward the source. The anise oil won this one, but I want to be fair. I should mention how I set up the test because the details matter. Both wicks were standard felt strips from the hardware store, about $2 for a pack of 10. I applied 4 drops of anise oil on 1 wick and roughly a 1/4 teaspoon of Tink's Power Scrape on the other, which is the amount the bottle recommends. Both wicks hung at the same height, roughly 4 feet off the ground, about chest height on a whitetail, from a wire attached to a branch. I replaced both wicks with fresh applications every 5 days. The cameras were set to take 3 photos per trigger with a 5-second delay between triggers. I reviewed every photo manually and only counted events where the deer was clearly oriented toward the wick, not just passing through the frame. Tinks had more buck-specific visits, 4 versus 3 on the anise side. The anise pulled more dozen yearlings. If you are strictly after mature bucks during pre-rut, the commercial scrape scent might have a slight edge because it contains actual deer urine, compounds that mature bucks respond to differently than does. For general attraction and getting more deer into your area, the anise was better in my test. 1 property, 1 test, not proof, direction. The second comparison was cover scent. I used anise oil on my boot soles versus Downwind Scent Prevent boot spray at $8. The idea behind cover scent is not to make you invisible. It is to confuse the scent picture enough that a deer cannot immediately categorize what it smells as human. Anise oil is strong, sweet, and completely foreign to the whitetail woods of the eastern United States. A deer that hits an anise scent trail does not think human or not human. It thinks what is that, which buys you a few extra seconds of confusion before the deer decides whether to blow out or keep walking. I tested this by walking the same entry route on alternating mornings, one with anise on the boots, one with the commercial spray. My measure was simple. How many times did a deer cross my entry trail within 100 yards of my stand, roughly the length of a football field, and react with an alarm posture, meaning head up, ears forward, stiff legs? Over 12 sits with each treatment. The anise entry trail produced 3 alarm reactions out of 8 trail crossings. The commercial spray produced 5 out of 9 crossings. Fewer alarm reactions on the anise trail. Not a huge sample, and some of those reactions could have been from residual body scent on vegetation. Brushed against not just the boot trail, but the direction matched what the Virginia guide told me. He said deer that hit anise on a trail get confused instead of alarmed, and confusion gives you time. I want to be clear about something. I did not run this test with scientific controls. I could not randomize perfectly because the entry routes to each stand crossed slightly different. Terrain, one through a creek bottom and one along a ridge bench. The vegetation I brushed against was different. My body scent was identical both days because I used the same base layer clothing and the same shower routine. But the ground conditions were not identical. What I can say is that the direction of the result, fewer alarm reactions on the anise entry, was consistent across 12 paired sits. 6 out of 12 is not a lot, but when a guide who has been doing this for 8 years tells you the same thing you are seeing in your own limited data, the confidence goes up. I trust his 8 years of daily observation more than my 12-sit sample. Quick pause here. Everything I just walked through, and 100 more tricks like it, is sitting inside the Buck Hunter's Bible, 2026 edition. 280 pages of the stuff that actually puts deer on the ground. And right now, if you grab it, I am throwing in the 30-day opening day roadmap completely free. That is a 60-page day-by-day preseason plan that walks you from the first scout to opening morning, so you start this season ahead of every other hunter in the woods. Link in the description, QR code on screen. This is the season you stop guessing. The third comparison was mock scrape enhancer. I built 2 identical mock scrapes, each a cleared patch of dirt about 2 feet across, roughly the size of a truck tire, under a grapevine-licking branch wired at chest height. One scrape got 3 drops of anise oil on the licking branch. The other got 3 drops of Mrs. Dopey's buck and rut at $16 on the same type of branch. Over a 4-week window through the rut, the anise scrape had 11 buck visits on camera. The Mrs. Dopey scrape had 13. The commercial product won this round, and it makes sense. During the rut, bucks are specifically seeking doe estrus and buck territorial scent. A urine-based product speaks their language during that window. Anise oil speaks a different language, curiosity, which is powerful in October, but less targeted than reproductive scent in November. I am not going to pretend anise beats everything in every situation. During peak rut, the commercial doe estrus products have an edge on mock scrapes because they match what bucks are actively searching for. Pre-rut and post-rut, when bucks are not yet locked onto reproductive scent, the anise oil outperformed every commercial curiosity scent I tested because the novelty factor is stronger. A deer that has smelled tinks or code blue on wicks near other hunter stands all season long has already categorized those scents. Anise is something it has never encountered, and that unfamiliarity is what drives the investigation. The fourth comparison is the one that changed my mind about carrying multiple products. Anise oil as a drag rag scent versus Conquest Scents VS1 Whitetail at $14 for the drag rag formula. A drag rag is a piece of absorbent cloth, an old sock or a strip of flannel, soaked in scent and dragged behind you on a cord as you walk to your stand. It leaves a scent trail on the ground that a cruising buck can follow directly to your location. I soaked 1 drag rag in anise oil, about 10 drops on a cotton sock, and dragged it on my entry route to the stand. On a separate entry route to a stand 200 yards away, roughly 2 football fields, I dragged a rag soaked in the Conquest product. Both routes ended at stands with cameras. Over 2 weeks during the pre-rut, the anise drag route had 6 deer follow the trail to within 30 yards of the stand. The Conquest route had 4. And the anise rag still smelled strong after 2 days on the ground. while the Conquest scent faded noticeably within about 8 hours. The persistence surprised me. My best guess is that the primary compound in anise oil, which is called anihol, has a lower evaporation rate than the alcohol-based carriers in most commercial drag scents, so it clings to leaf litter and dirt longer. I am not a chemist, and I cannot prove that mechanism. What I can tell you is that the anise trail was still pulling deer interest 2 days later when I checked the cameras, and the Conquest trail was cold after the first night. I ran a second drag rag comparison the following season on the Illinois property. Same method, different terrain. The Illinois corridor runs through thick bottomland timber where humidity stays high, and scent clings to vegetation differently than on the dry Ozark ridges. In that wetter environment, the anise drag trail pulled 8 deer investigations over 3 days versus 5 on the commercial drag trail over the same period. The humidity seemed to help the anise oil because the moisture in the air kept the volatile compounds from dispersing too quickly. The anise trail in wet timber lasted longer and pulled from a wider area than the same application on dry ground. If you hunt river bottoms, creek corridors, or swamp edges, anise drag rags may work even better for you than they did for me on the ridges. Look, I am going to be straight with you. Everything I am walking through in this video is just a small piece of what is inside the Buck Hunter's Bible. 2026 edition, 280 pages, 101 field-tested tricks, and right now you also get the 30-day opening day roadmap free with it. A 60-page day-by-day plan that gets you ready before the season even starts. I do not know how long that bonus stays in the deal, but if you have been watching these videos and thinking this could be my season, that is the move. Link in the description below, QR code on screen. Make this the year. A guide in the Black Hills fringe of western South Dakota, that ponderosa pine and grass basin west of Rapid City where the mule deer and whitetail ranges overlap, told me he has been using anise oil on drag rags for about 5 years. He said it works on both species, which makes sense because the curiosity response is not species specific. An unfamiliar but non-threatening scent triggers investigation in any deer, mule deer included. His clients have taken whitetails and muleys over anise drag setups on the same property. His data, not mine, one guide, one area. But the cross-species angle is something I would not have considered without hearing it from someone who hunts both. I also want to address something a viewer might be thinking. If anise oil is this good, why is nobody selling it as a deer product? The answer is margin. A $3 bottle of pure anise oil from the pharmacy lasts a full season. There is no recurring revenue in that. A company that packages scent products needs you to buy $12 to $18 bottles every 2 to 3 weeks across a 3-month season. That is $50 to $100 per hunter per year. The business model depends on you not finding the $3 option that does the same job. I am not saying the companies are evil. I am saying they are businesses, and businesses do not advertise cheaper alternatives to their own products. You would not either. Where anise oil does not perform well is in high wind. Anything above 12 to 15 miles per hour, about enough wind to move small branches, breaks the scent column apart and scatters the volatiles before they can form a coherent trail or plume. On windy days, skip the anise and hunt a wind-protected setup like a creek bottom or a terrain break. The scent does not reach far enough in turbulent air to justify the application. Also, pure anise oil is potent. 3 to 5 drops is a full application on a wick or a drag rag. I made the mistake of using about 15 drops on my first drag rag because I treated it like a commercial product where you pour freely. The result was a scent trail so strong that a doe walked up to the drag rag itself, stood over it, sniffing for nearly a minute based on the camera footage, and then walked away from my stand instead of following the trail to it. She found the source before she found me. Less is more. 3 to 5 drops. The whole bottle lasts a month of hunting. My buddy in Virginia told me the biggest mistake guys make when they try anise oil for the first time is treating it like a commercial pour-on product. Commercial scents are diluted, so you need a tablespoon to get a usable concentration. Pure anise oil is undiluted. 3 drops of pure oil contain more active compound than a full capful of most commercial curiosity scents. Treat it like hot sauce, not like ketchup. My Weatherby Vanguard in .27 $650, and my wife's Patience are both tested every fall. The rifle has held up better than the Patience. But when I told her I replaced $55 worth of scent products with a $3 bottle from the pharmacy, she actually nodded and said that is the first smart thing you have done in deer season in 20 years. I am still not sure if that was a compliment. The cost math over a full season is what closed the argument for me. I hunt roughly 40 sits per season across 3 properties. My old 4-product scent rotation cost approximately $50 per restock, and I restock twice per season. That is $110 per year in scent products. Over the 20 years I have been buying commercial scent, that is roughly $2,200. I could have bought a decent used truck for that. One bottle of anise oil per season at $3. Over 20 years, that is $60. The difference is $2,104. And the anise outperformed the commercial products in 3 out of 4 head-to-head comparisons I ran. My buddy in Virginia who showed me this has been saving that money for 8 years. He spent the savings on a new Weatherby Vanguard. I asked him if the rifle was worth it. He said the rifle is fine, but the deer do not care what you shoot them with. They care what pulls them close enough to shoot. He is not wrong. The bonus I promised is the drag rag mixture. Take 5 drops of pure anise oil and mix them with a half teaspoon of petroleum jelly, roughly the size of a pencil eraser, in your palm. Work it into the cotton drag rag so the petroleum jelly coats the fibers. The petroleum jelly is hydrophobic, meaning it repels water, and it traps the anise oil against the fabric so it releases slowly over 2 to 3 days instead of evaporating in a few hours. Rain does not wash it off. Morning dew does not dilute it. A buddy in the Shawnee tested it on a rainy November morning, and his camera still picked up a buck nosing the drag trail 36 hours after he laid it. A dry cotton rag with anise alone would have been washed clean in the first hour. The petroleum jelly holds it through weather. Total cost of the mixture is roughly a dime. A bottle of anise oil, a jar of petroleum jelly, and a cotton sock from the laundry. That is the whole drag rag kit. If you have a better mixture, leave it below. 1 bottle, 4 jobs. Curiosity scent, cover scent, mock scrape enhancer, drag rag. $3 at the pharmacy. 30 to 40 applications per bottle. Roughly 8 to 10 cents per sit. The commercial equivalent across 4 products runs $55, and you are replacing bottles every 2 to 3 weeks. Over a 3-month season, $265 in commercial scent. The anise oil route is $3. The deer do not read labels. They follow their nose. And right now their nose is telling them something in the woods smells like nothing they have ever encountered before. And they need to go find out what it is. Next time I am going to show you what happens when you combine the anise drag rag with a mock scrape network along a travel corridor. That combination is the closest thing to a guaranteed encounter I have found in 27 years of hunting. But this video gave you enough to start. Buy the bottle this weekend. Test it yourself. 2 cameras anise versus whatever you are currently using. 3 weeks. If your cameras show what mine showed, you will never walk into the scent aisle the same way again.